Hey guys, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing wonderful today. Don't forget to subscribe and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. Crazy aunt tries to have me arrested for murder. Victim objects. Now, this is another post about the same aunt from a previous video, where she tried to ground her adult daughter who doesn't live with her and stole her car, and ends up getting arrested. However, you probably don't have to hear them in order for it to make sense. It'll be down in the description if you want to check it out. So on to the story. This all took place around 30 years ago. It's all long buried, along with the crazy aunt. If you watch television shows from the 70s and 80s, you will notice odd things. People smoking at work, on planes, even in hospitals. Telephones have cords. At a police station, there are no computers on the desks, and everyone is smoking. Things have changed a lot since then. That includes mental health standards and police procedures. Please keep that in mind. Caller ID had not been invented. There were no mass-market mobile phones, and the ones that existed were for the filthy rich, and had limited use due to technology. It typically took a week to get your photos back, and there were no selfies. Wearing a seatbelt was optional, as were child safety seats. Car windows had to be manually rolled down. It was a different world. These events happened a long time ago. If you don't want to read the original story, my crazy aunt steals the car belonging to her daughter, and gets arrested for that and destroying her driver's license. Aunt posted a $500 US bond and had to appear in court the following week for the first hearing, as her attorney was going to attempt to get it dismissed. Just to clarify, the attorney in question spoke only to my aunt, and had only her version of the events. In spite of what you may see on television, that is generally how it works. Most attorneys don't investigate matters themselves, and go off of what their client says and any official documentation provided by the opposition. In this case, the state. Anyway, this is what happened starting the day after that arrest and leading up to that hearing. To say that hell broke loose the next day is putting it mildly. Even though my cousin Emily had a ticket written by the officer from the night before, stating that she had a valid license and to call it in if necessary, we opted to have me drive to the license branch to get a replacement. This is referring to her mother cutting up her daughter's license in front of a cop. It only took a few minutes and we were on our way to the museum. We were both a little nervous because my aunt hadn't called or anything, and with her silence was something to be worried about. We left the museum to get some lunch, and my cousin went to the restroom while I waited at the kiosk. As I'm standing there, a police officer approaches me. There are 3 others milling about, looking very out of place in that area. You know, the fake "I'm supposed to be here and need to look fake busy" behavior. The officer asks me for identification, and as I go to pull my license out for him, I asked him what was going on, and why he needed to see it. "Sure, officer, let me get it. What's going on?" "I have a report that you are an endangered runaway, involved in the trafficking of narcotics." I stopped cold and stared at the officer. I started laughing. He was not amused. My cousin approached us. And I say, "I don't suppose the name of the person who gave you the tip is Crazy Aunt?" "I can't give that information out," said the officer. I hand him my license. As you can see, I'm over the age of being considered a runaway. I was 21. I'm also not involved with narcotics of any kind, and if you need to discuss this further, you can contact my attorney. "I'm sorry for bothering you, but we had to check." "I get that. Maybe I was an endangered runaway, and until you check, you can't possibly know that. What you should know, however, is that your source was arrested last night for stealing a car and destroying government property." "Well, I'll check on that when I get back." Cousin and I get our food and head back to her place. When we arrive, there are about 30 messages on our answering machine. Several were from my brother. It seems that my aunt, delusional as ever, called him and told him I had been arrested for drug trafficking and was in really serious trouble. He was a little concerned. I called him back and told him everything. Thankfully, he hadn't booked a flight to get to me, so crazy aunt failed on that front. I told him our plans for the evening, and he told me to be very cautious around my aunt. I told him not to worry, I'd be fine. The other messages were from Crazy Aunt to me, demanding that I leave, explaining that I'm not allowed by law to visit that state without her permission, or without being with a parent or legal guardian. The world was a strange place in her head, and she was going to have me arrested if I didn't leave. Naturally, she blamed me for her arrest the previous evening. Emily and I went out for dinner and to attend the Concerts in the Park series that was going on that week, and I had the feeling I was being followed. I was trying to pinpoint where my crazy aunt was in the crowd, when Emily said softly, "Straight ahead, 3 o'clock. Yup, there she was. Unlike everyone else who was facing the band, she was staring at us. Just staring. We decided to cut the evening short and went home. I like weird, but that was sinister. About an hour later, there was a banging on the door. It was the police. We let them in. They had a quote tip that it was a drug house and asked if we minded them searching it. Of course we minded. We asked if they had a warrant, and suddenly my crazy aunt appears. "Ma'am, you can't be here right now," said the officer. "My daughter lives here," said crazy aunt. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you will still have to wait outside." "So you gave them another false tip?" I said. "No, I told you that you would be arrested, and I was right. If you aren't hiding drugs, then why do you care if there is a warrant? Answer me that." "Because privacy is important to us as citizens in a free country." And the officer says, "Ma'am, no one is being arrested. We were following up on a tip, and apparently you are the one that made the accusation." "Arrest her, she isn't supposed to be here." "Why not?" "Because she doesn't have my permission to be here. I've told her specifically that she is not allowed to visit my daughter without my permission." "Do you own this property?" "No, my daughter lives here, so it's my home too." And Emily says, "No, it's not your home. I invited OP here. Now please leave us alone. She doesn't have my permission to even be in this state." "Your permission is not required to visit this state, or even this person. They are both adults," said the officer. And I say, "Officers, this woman has now made 2 false complaints against me, harassed me and threatened me. Is there any chance you can arrest her, lose her paperwork for about 10 days? By then I'll be home." "They can't do that. I have every right to keep you away. Besides, I have to be in court next week because of you," said the aunt. "Why does she have to be in court?" "Because she stole my car and tore up my license yesterday," Emily said. "That was her? I heard about that at the station this morning," said the cop. "What are my options?" I asked. "I'm sorry, but we can't lose her paperwork, though I certainly sympathize with you. You can, however, press charges against her if you like. It would get her out of your hair until morning at least." "I'll take it," I said. I signed the form and she was arrested. Again. This time she posted $1,000 and was released. Because the police clearly don't understand the law and how she is right, she goes back to trying to harass me and control Emily. The problem was that now she couldn't find us. While she was busy being arrested and bonding out, I talked to my mom and her brother and sister-in-law. Mom got us a hotel suite booked under the maiden name of my good aunt. Emily and I packed up and moved to the hotel. 4 days later, there is a knock on the hotel room door. I answer it to find the police standing there. This was different. 2 were in uniform and 2 were in regular clothes. Detectives. Oh boy. I sighed, told them I'm not a runaway and there are no drugs, but come on in anyway, and offered them some of our soda supply. They declined. "Do you know why we are here?" asked the detective. And I said, "Not specifically, but if I were to guess, I'd say my crazy aunt has cooked up some new story to sell to you." "Do you know where we can find Emily?" "Yes," I said. "Is this a confession?" "To what?" "To her murder." "What?" I said. "Your aunt says that you have always hated your cousin and that 4 days ago you got her out of the way, and then killed Emily and dumped her body. Cooperation would go a long way here." First, crazy aunt is the one that has always hated me. It's a long story. Emily is one of my best friends, as well as my cousin. Second, I not only didn't kill her, she isn't dead. Then where is she? Taking a shower. One officer had moved to the bathroom door and could hear someone in there. He nodded at the detective. "Do you have any weapons in here?" the officer asked. "Just the knife by the sink." I handed them each a Coke and took one myself. I yelled into the bathroom, "Hurry up, we have company." Emily squealed, "Mikey," who is her boyfriend. I knew she'd hurry up now. I returned to my seat. There was another knock on the door. This time it was Mike. He came in, grabbed a soda, sat down, and looked at the police. He nods at the 2 plainclothes cops and says, "Detectives?" They nodded. "So what is she claiming you did this time?" "Murder." Cool, who'd you kill? Emily. Damn, I was going to marry that girl, said Mike. You do, and crazy aunt becomes your mother-in-law. I don't plan on returning from the honeymoon. She'll never find us. I thought that when we left M's place and decided to stay here. Yet here we are. Fair point. How did they find you? Said Mike. Good question. And the detective says, we had your information and we called your home. Your father initially refused to tell us where you were and insisted on calling the precinct directly to make sure it was really the police. Smart man. Then he told us where you were. He would like you to call him when we are done here. I picked up the phone and called my brother. I let him know everything was fine and that I'd call back later with more details. Emily comes out of the bathroom and rushes to see Mike. It takes a second for her to notice the police. Oh, good grief, what is she claiming you did this time? Emily asked me. Murder, I said. Wow, she's pulling out all the stops here. Who'd she say you killed, Kennedy? You. Me? But I'm not dead. May we see some identification? Asked the detective. Emily handed it to him and we gave them the whole story. The officers just shook their heads. And the detective says, we will let her know that you are alive and that you will contact her when you see fit. We will not disclose your location to her. So she gets away with more harassment? I asked. I'm afraid so. The reality is that we can't prove that there was malicious intent here, even though there was. When neither she or anyone else that knows Emily had seen or heard from her in days, she can make the case that she reasonably concluded that Emily was in danger. You were the last person known to be with her, so you are the logical starting point. Well, thanks for not coming in with guns blazing, I said. We only do that on television. Randomly shooting up hotel rooms creates a lot of paperwork, and we hate paperwork. Try and enjoy the rest of your visit here. Oh, I will. She goes to court in a few days for car theft, and I wouldn't miss that for anything, I said. And that's where OP ends the post. It's pretty insane that someone would go to such lengths to try to harass someone like that. And it's also unfortunate that she didn't get in trouble for it either. But like they said, Emily did disappear for several days, so I guess the aunt could make the argument that she was just worried about her, even though it was the crazy aunt herself that Emily was hiding from. Anyway guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So take care, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one.